All right, so today we're going to dive into something a little bit spooky. What if ghosts decided to ditch the haunted houses and start haunting our tech instead?
Ooh, that's a chilling thought. You've already got me interested.
The inspiration for this deep dive is a podcast episode that explores this exact scenario. Like, imagine a world where the afterlife isn't limited to just physical spaces, but it can actually follow you through your phone, your laptop, your
Yeah.
smart devices. Have you ever gotten that, like, eerie feeling that your tech was acting a little off?
Oh, definitely. I think we've all experienced, those weird glitches and phantom notifications. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Exactly, and that's exactly where we're going to start our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We're not trying to prove or disprove the existence of ghosts or anything, but we're going to explore this really fascinating what-if scenario that is presented by this podcast episode. What if ghosts figured out how to haunt data itself?
That's a very clever twist on the traditional haunting. We tend to think of ghosts as tied to a specific place. But this source is making the argument that data, especially when you think about the cloud, is a new kind of space. It's a digital realm. And I think it's really fascinating to consider that a spirit that can't move on might find itself drawn to this huge network of information.
It's like a digital graveyard, but instead of tombstones, you've got terabytes of data. And this source gives some really chilling examples of how this could actually play out. Imagine a creepy voice assistant whispering things it shouldn't know, or ghostly voices in your headphones, or even like a cursed email that completely wrecks your device.
That last one is a little too close to home for me. Can you imagine trying to explain to tech support that you think your computer's haunted by a ghost, but beyond the initial shock, of the idea? I think it's worth considering what the deeper implications are here. If a ghost can follow you through technology, it brings a whole new level of anxiety to our world, where we're always connected.
Absolutely. It taps into this primal fear, I think, that we all have,
Yeah.
that we can never truly disconnect, that something can always be watching us through the devices we use every day. And it makes you wonder, if ghosts can haunt data, what about all of our automated systems these days? Could a tech-savvy ghost manipulate our smart homes, for example?
That's exactly what our source suggests. They describe smart homes becoming like nightmarish playgrounds for ghosts, flickering lights, phantom doorbells, sudden temperature drops, all orchestrated by some unseen presence. So it's like all of the classic haunting tropes, but amplified through technology.
Okay, that's both terrifying and intriguing at the same time. I
Hmm.
mean, it takes the classic haunted house idea that makes it something much more pervasive, something that could follow you anywhere. But I think the most unsettling idea, at least for me, is the possibility of ghosts actually using technology to communicate with us.
Yeah, the source explores that concept too. Just imagine receiving a text from a number you don't recognize, or finding really weird entries in your search history, or even seeing like faces appear on your screen. It really blurs the lines between the digital and the real and the rational and the supernatural in a way that I think is really unsettling.
It raises a huge question. How would we even react to something like that?
Hmm.
I mean, would we even believe it was happening, or would we just chalk it up to, another tech glitch? Our dependence on technology, I think, might make us blind to the possibility that something more otherworldly is at play.
That's a really crucial point. We're so used to glitches and errors that we might completely miss a genuine supernatural event
Yeah.
and just think it's another bug in the system. But then, it gets even more complicated. How could our current cybersecurity measures even handle a threat that's not bound by the laws of physics as we know them?
We're talking about a whole other level of cybersecurity concerns here, an entirely new realm where all of our current tools and understanding might be totally useless. It would be like trying to fight a ghost with antivirus software.
Exactly. And it begs the question, if data is this new kind of space, as our source suggests, and our lives are becoming more and more intertwined with it all the time, what other unseen possibilities might exist within this digital realm? What else could be lurking in the depths of the data that we create and share every single day?
Well, that's a thought-provoking question, and we'll definitely be exploring it further as we continue our deep dive, so stay with us.
So, we've talked about ghosts hunting data and maybe messing with our devices, but I think the thing that really fascinates me is how would we as humans, psychologically, how would we deal with digital hauntings?
That's a great point, and our source kind of digs into that too. They argue that we're already pretty on edge when it comes to technology. All the privacy concerns and information overload and just that feeling of being constantly connected. And now imagine adding ghosts to the mix.
Exactly right. It's like tech is this amplifier for all of our existing fears, and the source makes this really interesting comparison to our, primal fear of the dark. We're just
Wow.
naturally afraid of what we can't see, and tech, with all of its invisible processes and connections, kind of plays into that in a big way.
Especially you think about, a ghost using tech to like watch us or listen in on our conversations. It would be like a supernatural invasion of privacy.
Yeah, exactly. It really challenges our sense of control and security, and suddenly the devices that we use for communication and entertainment and even like our safety,
Right.
could be completely turned against us by a ghost. And it's almost like a whole new kind of psychological horror story, but it's playing out in the digital world.
I think that's what makes this scenario so captivating to me. It's not just about the technology itself, but how it interacts with some of our deepest fears and anxieties.
Cool.
It forces us to really confront the unseen and the unknown in a way that feels really real and immediate.
It does, and it makes you wonder, how would we even begin to cope with something like that? I mean, would we even believe someone who said they were being haunted through their phone? Or would we just think they were spending way too much time online?
Right. It's a really tricky situation because we're already so used to dismissing weird tech behavior as just a glitch. Like, oh, it's just a bug. But what if it's not a bug? What if it's a ghost?
Yeah, and that ambiguity I think is so fascinating. The scenario isn't just about ghosts and gadgets, but how technology as a whole is changing our perception of reality. It's making us vulnerable to all of these new and really unsettling experiences.
So, playing devil's advocate here, if we do entertain this possibility of digital hauntings, what kind of evidence should we even be looking for?
Well, the source mentions a few things. They talk about these ghostly fingerprints, so to speak, like unexplained smudges that show up on your touch screen or, strange keyboard activity that doesn't match your typing style. There's also the possibility of, bizarre codes that pop up in your search history or files that appear and disappear randomly, things like that.
Okay, so I'm always a little bit skeptical of those ghost hunting shows. But what about those, creepy voice recordings that people sometimes catch on their devices?
Yeah.
Those whispers or voices that just sound otherworldly.
Ugh.
Could that be evidence of a digital haunting?
Now that's where things get really tricky. How do you tell the difference between a genuine supernatural phenomenon and, a technical glitch or some random audio signal or even just your own imagination playing tricks on you?
Exactly. Tech is already so complex and kind of mysterious that it's really tempting to just blame anything strange that happens on some unknown, tech gremlin when it could be something else entirely.
Right, and that uncertainty, that doubt can be so unsettling. I think it makes you question your own sanity, your own grip on reality, because it's not just about this external threat of a ghost, but also the internal turmoil that it creates within you.
It's like a psychological thriller, but it's playing out in your own mind.
Yeah.
You start to second guess everything you see and hear, wondering if you're losing touch with reality.
And I think that's what makes this topic so relevant, even if you don't believe in ghosts at all. The idea of a digital haunting really taps into these very real anxieties that we have about technology. The loss of privacy and the fear of being watched, the feeling of losing control over our own lives.
It's the perfect modern day ghost story, for the digital age. And it really makes you think, how would ghosts adapt to even newer technologies?
Yeah.
What happens when they figure out VR or AI?
Ooh, a ghost in the metaverse. A haunted AI chatbot. Now you're really getting my imagination going. But, before we get too carried away with these future possibilities, I want to bring it back to the listener for a moment because, not everyone is going to buy into this idea of a digital haunting. Some might find it completely ridiculous and others absolutely terrifying. And then you've got everyone in between.
Absolutely. It's definitely a fascinating concept that gets you thinking.
And ultimately, I think that's the whole point. Whether or not you believe in ghosts, this scenario really encourages us to think critically about our relationship with technology and to consider, what are the potential consequences of becoming so reliant on it.
I couldn't agree more. It's a chance to confront some of our deeper fears and anxieties about the digital world and to really think about, the ethical implications of technology having such a huge influence on our lives.
It reminds us that even in this, super advanced technological age, there are still mysteries that we just can't fully explain, forces that we might not be able to control.
And that is a chilling thought to leave us with as we wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've really gone deep into this idea of, ghosts haunting our technology. From those creepy whispers in our headphones to, smart homes becoming these like nightmarish playgrounds. But before we wrap up, I want to kind of take a step back and ask, what does it all mean?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Hmm.
I think this whole scenario goes beyond just like ghosts and gadgets. It's really a reflection of how our relationship with technology is constantly evolving and how it's even changing, our understanding of the world, maybe even life and death.
You're right. If we even just entertain the possibility that ghosts could exist in this digital world, it makes us kind of rethink our assumptions about, things like consciousness and what happens after we die. It's
Yeah.
almost like science fiction is becoming reality in a way.
And it makes you think about, where are the boundaries between the physical and digital realms?
Mm.
If data is like a new kind of space, like
Yeah.
our source suggests, what does that mean for how we even understand reality itself? I mean, that's a huge question, right? And it leads to some pretty serious ethical considerations too. Like if a ghost can access our data, manipulate our devices, even communicate with us through technology, what happens to our privacy and our security? Do we have any control in that kind of scenario?
Yeah, those are some really big questions. And, philosophers and ethicists are already trying to grapple with them, and they're only going to become more and more pressing as we rely on technology even more.
Yeah.
It's like we're entering this uncharted territory where the rules are still being written as we go.
It's both exciting and a little unnerving, right? This possibility that we could encounter, the supernatural within the digital realm, it really gives a whole new meaning to that phrase, ghost in the machine.
It totally does. It reminds us that even in this digital age, there are still so many mysteries that we haven't solved and forces that are beyond our control.
So thinking about everything we've talked about today, is there like one question that you would want to ask a tech-savvy ghost if you had the chance?
Hmm. That's a tough one. Maybe I'd ask how they perceive this digital world. Is it a limiting space for them, or is it like this vast new frontier?
That's a great question. And for you listening, what aspect of this whole deep dive has resonated with you the most? What unsettling or intriguing possibilities have really stuck with you?
Whatever your takeaway is, I think it's safe to say that, our relationship with technology is incredibly complex and constantly changing. Maybe this exploration of digital hauntings, even if it's purely hypothetical, can be like a reminder to approach the digital world with both curiosity and a healthy dose of caution.
Well said, and thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of digital hauntings. And remember, the next time your tech starts acting up, it might not just be a glitch. Sweet dreams.